Real Madrid had 0 shots on target until the 90th minute. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, we have just witnessed the best Champions League tie that there ever has been. In 2 legs, without away goals as well, might I add. The best Champions League tie in a semi-final clash with 2 high-quality sides that the Real Madrid team are the champions of La Liga, who ran away with it on the weekend, and Manchester City in a tight title race with Liverpool, but both sides top of their respective leagues. And we have just witnessed one of the greatest games in football history. Where do we start here, people? Where do we start? But Wagwan, everyone, I hope you're keeping well. And this is my match reaction into this wonderful game. A heartbreaking game, another Champions League heartbreak for Manchester City, which just keeps piling on and on. We had the Champions League final last year with that defeat, but the bigger Champions League heartbreak is this one. And then you're looking back to that heartbreak against Tottenham, where they scored that last-minute goal for VAR to rule it out when they thought they were making it through, but then Tottenham made it. This competition just keeps on serving greatness just keeps on serving greatness. We've seen Champions League semi-final ties when Liverpool, Tottenham played in the final. They had their respective comebacks, and Real Madrid have gone through each and every knockout tie being behind at one point in the game or in the tie, or from the majority of it against PSG and Manchester City. But even when they're on the end, they look like they're receiving a comeback at their own ground, they still go and grind it and still do enough. But what a game this has been. And guys, I'm going to have to break it through. If you haven't watched it, this is a match reaction where I'm going to break down and analyze each and every individual moment. But big up to my bro Mabanga, who's here watching it now and live, who joined me for the watch along, a new subscriber. Big up to you, my bro. But the game, if I'm going to talk about it before the 73rd minute, and everything that kicked off after that, it was still finely balanced. And at half-time, it was 0-0. We reached half-time. Manchester City, they didn't have the control that we see they usually have in midfield, keeping the ball. There was a lot of loose passes. The ball was being worked out wide a lot. Gabriel Jesus, who what we have seen of him lately is start as a real number 9 and really dominate in that area of the pitch, and be central and be a focal point in that way, and be in the box ready for those goal scoring opportunities. I felt like Pep Guardiola gave him instructions to be more fluid, and we saw the likes of Bernardo Silva and Kevin De Bruyne, who usually like to attack the half spaces and create triangles with the winger and the fluid striker and the fullbacks, with the likes of João Cancelo, who started at left back, and Kyle Walker, who was at right back, and I thought had a fantastic game, in all honesty, against Vinicius Jr. Kept him quiet throughout, but kept him quiet in a way that he wasn't at the end and really creating the chances. But Vinicius Jr. was constantly a threat, and I've seen a lot of criticism for like Vinicius Jr.'s performance, but I don't quite get it. But when I was looking at Manchester City, I was thinking, all right, they're not at their best, they're not at their normal, where they're controlling, and Real Madrid had chances. They had 0 shots on target, but they had multiple times and half chances to really work Ederson in goal. But they couldn't even draw a save out of the goalkeeper, out of the Manchester City goalkeeper. But then what we saw was Manchester City started to grow into it at the start of the second half, getting into the final third. And this happened towards the end of the first half, getting into the final third a little bit more, just lacking that end product. Bernardo Silva was looking a constant threat and was probably Manchester City's best player going forward, with what he usually does with his driving runs, weaving through tight gaps like a needle in a haystack. He was finding the space. But yeah, Kevin De Bruyne didn't have his best game for me. And I said before the game, this had to be Kevin De Bruyne's moment to mark himself as one of the greats in the game. Still yet to do that for Manchester City in this big moment. He had a great, I'm saying in the decisive moments, because he had a fantastic performance in the first leg. We can't take that away from Kevin De Bruyne. But then when we're looking at this Mahrez goal, it was coming. And it was kind of lackadaisical because there was so much high pressing. It was a ridiculous high quality game. And any moment where either side had a lapse in concentration, it was pounced upon and a chance was there created. But neither side looked to really have that bite in that final third to Real Madrid to wrestle the game back in their control, having the advantage of being at home in the second leg, but Manchester City having that 1-goal advantage. But then there was that moment in the 73rd minute with that Mahrez goal where City continued to keep playing through that Real Madrid press. I thought City edged that in those battles where Real Madrid were pressing high because Manchester City were doing it a lot too, and they found some joy getting the ball off of the likes of Eder Militao. I think struggled to play through the press the majority of the time. But with the pressing continually going on, there was a huge gap for Bernardo Silva, where Gundogan, who was the replacement for Kevin De Bruyne, he found Bernardo Silva, and he drove into that space and he played the ball. He looked like he played it short to Mahrez, but it was the perfect weighted pass for Mahrez to take it on first time with his left foot. And he fooled me, let alone Thibaut Courtois. Thibaut Courtois went to dive to his right, and you can see it with the goal. He planted his foot to get ready to jump and spring off of that right foot to go and make the save to his right, but then wasn't able to react quick enough as Mahrez whipped it in with the inside of his foot, which is what we saw Wayne Rooney do a lot of the time. Wayne Rooney was a master at that. He always used to whip it in and fool the goalkeepers by going on the near post or going in the near post or the inside, rather than making it look like how his body's shaped and how his foot is to go to the outside. But yeah, that was the goal, and that seemed to wrap the tie up. If you're looking at it as a neutral, if you're looking at it as a whole, Manchester City were the better side if you're looking at it in that sense, because they didn't have the control that we know City do, but relatively they're playing away from home at the Santiago Bernabeu and scoring a goal and keeping a clean sheet. It looked like, yeah, Man City are going to see this through. And especially as the game wore on, I was getting this match reaction ready. I had the Mahrez goal, the picture of him celebrating as the cover as the match reaction in the 88th minute. And I was like, but you can't discount this Real Madrid side. I was saying it in the live watch along. Go check it out if you want to see the reactions to the goals. You can't discount this Real Madrid side because of what we've seen literally this season and the heritage that they've shown throughout this tie. But we have to be honest, people. There was chances for Jack Grealish at 1-0. I'm not even going to get to the goal because they just seem to be... If someone was going to score, you'd definitely said it was going to be Manchester City. Jack Grealish with the decisive moments in those areas. What you pay £100 million for to take those chances. And let's be honest, the second one he generated himself. It was well played. And it's a fantastic save from Thibaut Courtois. But the first one, he beats the goalkeeper, but his shot isn't enough to make the goal because Ferland Mendy recovers well and gets it clear. But my word, Rodrigo, the ridiculous. You know what? The goal is fantastic. The ball was whipped in towards the back post where Karim Benzema, he's stretching for it. He hooks it back into the danger area and Rodrigo makes a striker's run and nicks in at that near post and hits it with the outside of his boot. And that was a surprise in itself, seeing that Real Madrid were finally going to take a chance and get a shot on target. But then how many minutes later? 4 minutes later, a ball whipped in from that same right area of the pitch on Manchester City's left, where Alexander Zinchenko has come on because João Cancelo has had to move from left back to right back from Kyle Walker's injury. And that's a shame. And I thought that was a turning point in the game as well, I'm going to be honest. And it's not in the context of the game, but in the context of the game finishing now 3-1 to Real Madrid. Because Zinchenko's just nowhere near at the level for me in this, to be playing in the Champions League in this pressurized moment at Real Madrid in the semi-final. And it told because both goals came from across from that right area. But I'm going to give praise here to Rodrigo. The leap, bearing in mind, it took a deflection off of the head of Marco Asensio. He actually flicked it on, and Rodrigo rose, looking like Ronaldo. It leaped like a salmon. Yeah, the ball was played in by Benzema for the first goal and flicked in at the near post by Rodrigo. Right side again. But for me, I'm saying, and that's not Zinchenko's fault, but the second goal is in terms of not stopping the cross. And Rodrigo being unmarked, rose and nodded it in, and it was a fantastic header. So Jack Grealish is being sent out. But look at this. Why isn't Zinchenko getting closer and helping there? He's in no man's land. Zinchenko has got to help because Jack Grealish is closing down two players in this situation. Wonderful cross from Carvajal. Should Edison have dealt with that better? That's the question. I don't think so. I think it's a wonderful header in such close proximity. At first, I thought he maybe should have saved it, but in the end, wow, what a header. And Mike's coming in and Mike saying it was a poor game. And I think it wasn't as enthralling as until the 90th minute. It wasn't as enthralling and end-to-end and goal-mouth action as we saw in the first leg, Mike. I do see where you're coming from there. But I did think it was a high-quality game, though. It still had moments of brilliance where we saw, Bernardo Silva, Vinicius Jr. taking on their man, showing a lot of high-level skill. And it was any mistakes that were made, any error at this top level, it will be punished. And ultimately, that's what happened when Real Madrid took it to 2-1. But even at the start of the second half, when it was 0-0, Real Madrid started on fire, and they started the exact same in the first half of the extra time. But there were some key individual performances that we'll run through when we go through the player ratings that were a key factor into the game turning around. Of course, Rodrigo was one of them. But then the third goal, a driving run from Eduardo Camavinga, plays it outright to Rodrigo, who cuts it back for Karim Benzema. And this is where top strikers and top players come alive, because Karim Benzema holds no chance of scoring in this scenario. He's going away from goal, and he's got quite a few bodies in and around him, Manchester City players in and around him in this area. But he knows if he gets a touch to that ball, he sees Ruben Dias stretching for it, and he gets a touch to that ball. And I think this is naivety of Ruben Dias, who tries to go and win the ball. In this scenario, you have to let Benzema even take a touch, because he's going away from goal, and then you can deal with that situation there. But maybe easier said than done, because it is an extra time, tired legs, tired minds, and that's a huge factor. But Karim Benzema, who was quiet throughout the second half. In the first half, he was at the end of a few opportunities, but didn't look like he had his shooting boots. But this gunman, he's a silent assassin at times. He didn't do too much. He was looking good and sharp in the first half with his link-up play with Vinicius Jr., who looked a threat, I thought, but Kyle Walker kept him at arm's length, I feel. And he managed him well in the game. And bearing in mind, he was carrying an injury and he was knackered, which we saw. But yeah, Real Madrid can't afford to be poor in the final, as it's only one game. It will be interesting. So Real Madrid, as you're saying, before I even get into the penalty, which was a fantastic penalty, by the way, Real Madrid were the worst side throughout, and they were behind for 185 minutes of this tie. 185 minutes of football. They were behind. They can't be like that against Liverpool. They can't start slow against Liverpool, because Liverpool will race into a lead, and then it'll be maybe 1 or 2 goals in the final, and that will be the difference. I'm not saying, Real Madrid can't come back, because they certainly can, but I think in one game it's too much to come back from against the Liverpool side. But you cannot say that, because Real Madrid, they've done it over and over again. They won't have the advantage of their home crowd in at the stadium, but what the advantage they will have is, we know we've done this 13 times. We've got a manager. We've got players who have been there, done that, wore the T-shirt a million times, won the quadruple some of these players have. And Carlo Ancelotti has helped guide with multiple teams to Champions League titles now. So it's going to be an interesting one, that final. But that penalty, clutch moment. And Mabanga, I think Mabanga was asked a question earlier on, and he said, Karim Benzema doesn't miss penalties. But he actually did he says, does Karim Benzema ever miss penalties? But if you guys know, he missed 2 penalties against Osasuna before the first leg of the game, when he Penenke'd when he Penenke'd Edison. But this penalty was pressured again, pressurized penalty, and he coolly slots it in. It sends the keeper the wrong way into the keeper's bottom left and Benzema's right. But even if the keeper guesses the right way, he's not getting anywhere near it. But then after that, Manchester City just couldn't break them down. And Real Madrid set up in the low block. There was, using their experience, slowing the game down, getting bodies behind the ball, letting the ball go out wide, because Manchester City do not have that focal point. They took off Gabriel Jesus, in fact, as well, who is the closest thing to what they have as a number 9. But this is why they are linked with Erling Braut Haaland, because they need that number 9. They need someone who can at least pose an aerial threat, because on set pieces, I think they look dangerous when you see the likes of Aymeric Laporte and Ruben Diaz go up. But other than that, Rodri in there as well, like we saw with the goal against Leeds, which they're going to have to really regather themselves, regroup, and use this as a motivation to compete for the title, because Liverpool will be on their case, and we know Liverpool are relentless. And we've got John in here saying, bye Man City, hi Tereak, big up to yourself. But this is going to be a huge test now for Guardiola to pick up these troops. And we have to ask a lot of questions now. Kevin De Bruyne's substitution. If Kevin De Bruyne is injured and there's something that comes out, don't listen to me. Erase that question and that for me saying this. But he's made some massive moments now, Pep Guardiola, in the Champions League. Had some massive decisions where he's overthought it. 3 at the back up against Lyon, knocked out. No defensive midfielder against Chelsea in the final, lost. And then taking off Kevin De Bruyne. I know it was 0-0 at this point, and Kevin De Bruyne wasn't having his best of games, but neither was Benzema at that point. And look who had the deciding factor and who won the game in the end. And that's what happens with world-class players. Unless Kevin De Bruyne is injured, you can't forgive that as a Manchester City fan, for Pep Guardiola consistently overthinking it. This is not to take away what Pep Guardiola has done for Manchester City, because the reason they've won 2 league titles in a row. How many league titles they've won with Pep is unbelievable. And the football he's gotten playing and being at the top of the tree at the moment against Liverpool, and even just competing with this Liverpool side and, restricting this Liverpool side to, at this moment, 1 league title is in itself, because Liverpool have a chance to win 2 Champions Leagues under Jurgen Klopp, but only have 1 Premier League title to their name. So that shows how wonderful of a job Pep Guardiola has done. But in the Champions League, you're asking how you keep doing it? How does this keep happening? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, why do you keep making these decisions to do this, to consistently keep overthinking at these moments? But if I could be wrong if there's an injury, but I'm maybe playing into what he's done previously, because I thought the lineup for City was perfect in terms of how he wanted the game state to go. Don't listen to me. It's all I heard there. Oh, did it freeze? Oh, my apologies, bro. Apologies for that. But let me have a look at the lineups, and let me talk to you about some of the performances and key performances from both sides, and we're disappointing. For Man City, Edison, nice, made the big moments where you want your goalkeeper to shine and needs to make those big saves, like we saw Alisson did against Villarreal last night. And Edison wasn't there. With the ball at his feet, he was brilliant, like how Edison is, Edison things. You want your goalkeeper to make those big saves in those moments and make something outstanding. And, why you spend a lot of money, why you have a goalkeeper for these scenarios. And what we've seen with Jordan Pickford on the weekend, and I know that's a completely different fight for Everton, but that's what you need to see, the unbelievable at these moments, and that would be the deciding factor in being in the Champions League final or even winning it. So you have to pose a question there on Ederson. But then, really, for Manchester City, no one else was, I don't think either centre-back looked great when Benzema had his efforts and he was given a bit too much time. And then you look at Rodrigo's header and the spaces he was taking. They struggled to mark a forward, a number 9, or anyone in those areas where number 9 would usually take. But apart from that, I thought there was some outstanding performances from Rodri. I thought Bernardo Silva had his moments. He wasn't great throughout, but he had a lot of moments in there. Riyad Mahrez, he was a big player. He had missed plenty of chances in the first leg, and those proved costly now. You can't look all the way back when you had the game. You had the lead in this leg. But yeah, Jack Grealish, those moments, he had to score. He had to score them. But for Real Madrid, there was some underperformers. I thought Eder Militao wasn't great. Luka Modric, I thought he was good. I thought he played all right. I can see a 6.3 on Sofa score here, which I think is a bit harsh. And Vinicius Jr., they've gone for a 6. I thought it was a bit harsh. I thought, I thought Kyle Walker dealt with him well. I thought Kyle Walker was one of their key performers for Manchester City. But you can't look past the big moments of Rodrigo and Eduardo Camavinga coming off of the bench and doing what they did. Camavinga has done it over and over again, coming off of the bench, being a role player in a way. And if you watch basketball, Jamal Crawford's, that's what Eduardo Camavinga's doing at the moment. But he's doing it at the age of 19 for the biggest club in the world in moments where they need him to step up. And he was vital for the penalty. He was vital for the first goal, clipping the ball to Benzema in the back post and driving forward and making plenty of tackles. And Camavinga his name's up here now on world football. It's in light. And to be honest, he should probably start the final ahead of Toni Kroos, in my eyes. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. But Paxton's saying Zinchenko has been poor. He will be protected somewhat for his nationality, of course. But is he good enough as a rotation player? He isn't super young anymore either. And yeah, do you know what, Pax? Yeah, you have to think, is he, looking at the factor which you've mentioned with his nationality and what's going on in the world at the moment, and with and at this level in professional football anyway, it's fine margins. But even in ability, I've never really been convinced by Zinchenko to be someone to step up in these big moments. He's more of a role player, like once again, basketball term, but someone to step in and do an all right job, a 6 out of 10 in that left back position. But with the game state, you need something a bit more than that. And you need that X factor, you need that spark, you need that creativity that João Cancelo provides. And he does that at left back better than he does at right back, because he has that unpredictability where he can go left, he can go right, but he doesn't really go inside from right back a lot, because he's coming inside onto his weaker foot. When you're going into traffic on your weaker foot is different to going into traffic on your stronger foot, which you're probably more comfortable dribbling the ball, flicking the ball. You can have more range of movement with the ball with your stronger foot than you can with your weaker foot. And you can go down on the outside, and it's okay playing a pass or a cross with your weaker foot, but it's away from traffic and away from, the congested areas. Whereas at right back, I feel like he struggles to do that a little bit more. And that's where Kyle Walker, he provides more balance defensively. Whereas, you're looking at the goals and the position that Rodrigo's taking up on the right wing and where he's making the runs from, you have to say, where Manchester City's defence as a whole, when Kyle Walker went off, it looked fragile. And there was moments where it looked fragile anyway, and it looked like they were sharp, but that was more out of Real Madrid's outstanding creativity, I thought. But there was plenty of moments for both sides to score before they did. But Manchester City, yeah, they're going to be disappointed. And so many questions have to be asked. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this up here, people. in terms of the match reaction, but let me go through some of your comments right now. Tereak, who do you think will win in the final? Oh, so difficult. I think it really could be Liverpool, John. I think it could be your boys because I can't. Real Madrid will have to be much better across in one-off in a 90-minute performance. Having said that, they weren't great today either, but they still went through because of key moments. But it's so difficult to say who's going to win it. But I think Liverpool will do it. I think you might get revenge for that moment. Salah, he will get revenge for the last final you guys played in the Karius moments in particular. And they weren't that great in that final either. But I think you'll win it in Liverpool, and that won't please Paxton or Man United fans or many fans across England. But the quadruple's still on. Where does Pep go from here? If he stays too much longer, he will have to rebuild. And I haven't seen him do anything special in terms when he talks about rebuilding teams. So, Pax, I think he will stay. I think he will because of the Klopp factor. Klopp signed his new deal. He's going to be staying until 2026. I can see him on screen now. I'd love to hear his post-match interview. But I think he will stay and he'll try to rebuild this side. We're seeing the likes of Erling Haaland come in and he's changing his way in a little bit from what we've seen the last 2 seasons and going for a focal point in Erling Haaland, who definitely isn't the finished product in terms of link-up play or his technical ability. But goal-scoring wise, he's close to the finished product, and it will add a different dimension to that City attack. They can still play with fluidity without him or develop him to a level where he can still provide fluidity going forward. But he provides a focal point, a presence, an aerial presence, a running behind type of striker against the high line. So if that transfer does go on, they will have a different element to their side, which is, potentially world-class as well. A plan B-ish, I guess. So I can see him staying on in my eyes. But yeah, the final, we're going to look forward to that. We're going to do a preview for that. We're going to be talking a lot more, delving into stats and whatnot. And I'll try and get things set up where we're talking about players' positioning. But yeah, just to wrap it up in terms of that, Manchester City are out. Sloppiness, lack of control at their hand in terms of not controlling the game for the 90-plus minutes or even the tie throughout 108, however much it was because we had extra time. They're going to be ruining those key moments, those missed chances, and that's all a part of control. But Real Madrid always looked like they could get into it without being at their best. And they did. They stepped up in the moments. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in. It's been a pleasure watching the game with you, doing this watch along. And we've got plenty more content coming up. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and that notification bell if you are new. Thank you to you all for tuning in and watching. I am out. I love you all. Thank you for 400 subs as well. I need to talk about this. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for the 400 subscribers. Plus, we're on the road to 500 now, and there will be a forfeit that you guys will have to decide if and when we get there. But thank you, people. We are out, and I love to you all. Catch you soon.